My name is Susan Van Meter, and I am the Community Grants Coordinator here at North Texas Community Foundation. And I have my colleague joining me today. Her name is Faith Martinez, and she is on our marketing and communications team. Thanks, Faith, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so we will go over a few things today. We're going to go over a little bit about North Texas Community Foundation. We're going to do a little bit of an overview of this particular grant cycle, how you can apply for a grant, and then at the very end, we're going to have a question and answer session. A few housekeeping. Let's make sure that everyone stays on mute during the presentation. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to drop them in the chat box. And then at the very end of the presentation, we'll have a Q&A portion. I'll bring down the screen share and pull up the questions, and Faith will help me go through those questions and make sure we get them all answered for you. Again, I'm Susan, the Community Impact Grants Coordinator here. Garrett March is the director of our Community Impact team. That's just the two of us on our impact staff here at the foundation, but we do have a staff of 21 people who make up the foundation. Here at the foundation, our purpose is to drive meaningful change through charitable investments. And we do that by helping our over 280 fund holders with their philanthropic interest and giving to those organizations that they care most about. We have 7 grant cycles here at the foundation. We have everything from animal welfare, equine therapy, and land conservation, which is why you are here today. We have the arts. We have a capacity building grant cycle that we call Toolbox. We have a grant cycle that works with children. We have a disaster relief grant cycle, and we have a racial equity grant cycle. To dive in a little bit more on animal welfare, equine therapy, and land conservation, we have some really great partners that have come in who are helping to fund this particular grant cycle. We've had 4 of our fund holders step up through their different charitable or family funds here at the foundation. And we've had a few other funding partners from the community step up and offer some gifts in support of this grant cycle. And if it wasn't for these people, we wouldn't be able to make this grant cycle possible for you all. All right, let's hop into the eligibility. And we'll start out with animal welfare. This is specific to cats and dogs. Our geographic eligibility is going to be specifically Tarrant and Johnson counties. A few of our other portions of this grant cycle are eligible to other counties, but for cats and dogs, it is specific to Tarrant and Johnson County, and it is specific to abused, injured, and abandoned animals. We are looking for 501c3 nonprofits who are non-breed specific organizations that are looking to help abuse, injured, and abandoned animals. Our award amounts this year have changed. For anyone who has been familiar with this grant cycle before, you know, previously it was $5,000, and this year we have increased that to $6,500 per organization. If you are an organization, and I'm just going to use them as an example, Humane Society of North Texas, not only do they serve cats and dogs, but they also have an equine rescue program. If you are a program that offers equine rescue in addition to cats and dogs, you are eligible to apply in a separate application for your equine rescue as well. Now, when we're looking at equine welfare and equine therapy, this is where our geographic eligibility is going to swell. We have 11 counties that are eligible to apply for grant funding for equine welfare and equine therapy. Again, you must be a 501c3 nonprofit and looking at rescuing, sheltering, and rehabilitating, adopting, fostering out, or even educating about the humane treatment of horses and equine assisted therapy programs. The award amounts in this category are up to $10,000 per organization. And here we do have one specific eligibility requirement that the organization must be PATH accredited if you are applying for equine therapy. If your organization is not PATH accredited, but you have a staff member who has PATH certification, we will accept that. Now, hopping into land conservation, we're looking at the same geographic eligibility in those 11 counties. And we are also opening it up to land trusts, as well as agencies that are working with wildlife and conservation efforts. Again, you must be a 501c3 nonprofit. And we're looking at, for education programs, awarding up to $7,500 per organization. And for land conservation projects, we're awarding up to $25,000. And this is specific to preserving North Texas area and ranch land, and also those education programmings about the protection of land and natural resources. So I thought I would cover a few of our previous grantees so you can see some of the projects that have been approved in the past. To share just a little bit about our grant committees, our grant committee members are made up of community volunteers who volunteer their time, upwards of 15 to 20 hours, reviewing the applications that come through. Then they meet together in our organization. They review these applications together, and then they determine who gets funding and how much funding this organization receives. So as we're looking at these previous grantees and their projects, just know that grant committee members are the ones that help determine the funding that you receive when you're applying. So one of our first grantees is Animal Investigations and Response. This is a Texas organization, but they have a North Texas field office. A few years ago, they applied for a $2,500 grant, and this was to get some additional equipment needed for their North Texas field response team. And they are here to assist organizations who are looking to capture animals or rescue animals. And you can kind of see in this photo right here, there was a dog who had a litter of puppies under a home, specifically an abandoned home. And so they were able to come in and help local organizations and rescue those puppies under that house with the mother. Another organization is Mid-Cities Community Cats. They received $5,000, and this was to help with strays, ferals, and injured cats in the community, what they call community cats, and provide them with medical treatment, rehabilitation, and any kind of medication that is needed to get them well and in new homes. Then we have Parker County Sheriff's Reserve. This organization goes in and provides kind of backup assistance to the Parker County Animal Control Office. They do not have a budget for equine. They are specific to dogs and cats. So the Sheriff's Reserve reached out to see if we would offer any financial assistance to help with their equine rescues. So we have been able to provide funding for farrier care, dental care, and veterinary care for those horses that have been abandoned, abused, and neglected in Parker County specifically. We also had Wings of Hope Equine Therapy. They received $10,000 last year. And though the funding did not go specifically to the equine therapy program, what it did go to was facility improvements to be able to make their equine therapy program more successful. So they needed some improvements not only to their facility, but they also needed to purchase some equipment that could help clean up and get their facility in better working order for their horses. And last is Great Plains Restoration Council. Last year, they received $18,000. They work with a local organization and youth program called Restoration, Not Incarceration, where they work with youth out on the Prairie Park there in Fort Worth and kind of the southwest Fort Worth area, and helping to conserve the prairie land and getting rid of invasive species and helping the prairies be able to thrive. So those are a few of the funded projects the past few years that we've had. And now our application process. So where do you apply? So when you go to our website, which is northtexascf.org, you want to hover over the word nonprofits up at the top of the page. You're going to have a ladder that drops down, and you want to click on either animal welfare or the land conservation page. The reason why I say either or is because if you hop on either of those pages, you're going to get access to the grant portal as well as the what we call the RFP, or the request for proposal. So I wanted to show you kind of what those two pages look like. You can also click on view past grantees and see who's been funded in the past, and the types of programs that have been funded. So once you've clicked on access to the grants portal, this is the grants portal page that will pop up. If you are a returning applicant, please use your email and your password that you already have set in place. If you are new to us and you are accessing the portal for the first time, you want to create a new account. Once you go in and start to create that new account, you are going to be taken to what's called your applicant dashboard. It's going to look a little something like this. And to access where our applications are, you're going to go up to the top where it says apply. When you click on apply, you're going to come to our available grants page. The first thing that's going to pop up at the very top is what we call our nonprofit profile. This is a form. This is not a grant proposal, but this is a form that you can fill out to tell us about your organization, what you're up to, and any kind of needs that you have for your organization. This is not a grant proposal, and this is not the grant proposal for the animal welfare, equine therapy, land conservation. So if you go a little bit further down right here where this first orange colored arrow is, that's where you're going to see that equine therapy, land conservation, animal welfare grant cycle. And you're going to move over to where it says apply and click on the apply button. And that's going to take you straight into the application. Once you begin the application, up in the top right-hand corner, I wanted to share something new with our application process. It's our collaborate feature. For anyone that's returning, you may know that you've oftentimes had to share your email or your password with your colleagues so that they could go in and check your work. Now you have the ability to invite people to be a part of your application process. So I wanted to show you what that looks like, and then I wanted to kind of tell you what this feature can do for your organization. So you have an unlimited number of collaborators that you can invite to your application. When you're here in this section down here where it says message, you want to be clear and concise in your message about what you want to do. So for instance, if I wanted to reach out to my, let's say our finance team to get a copy of our 990 form, I may email Chris and say, hey, Chris, in my message, please attach the 990 for our organization to this application. And then you want to make sure that you give him editing capability or her editing capability. If this person has ever used our grant portal before, they will not need to create a new account, and they don't need to go through the entire setup. They will receive a link that says you've been invited to collaborate on an application. And they will need to sign in with their username and password to be able to access that application. In the application, we're going to have two separate forms. One is called a project budget form, and the other one is an organization budget form. Here on the project budget form, this is where you're going to want to get into kind of the meat and potatoes of your project. So I've created a little sample here. The organization is called Wolf Gang Dog Rescue, and they are applying for funding for their spay and neuter repeat program. In this top section right here, what you want to do is you want to put down any funding that you've already secured towards your project budget. So Spay Neuter Repeat has an annual luncheon every year, and they are taking $3,500 from their annual luncheon and putting it towards their project budget expenses. Those expenses are going to be labeled down here, and they are looking to spay 200 dogs, spay and neuter 200 dogs in the 2023-2024 grant cycle, and that's going to take $10,000. So they've secured that $3,500 from their annual luncheon up here. And then the second section right here is the requested funding section. So you're going to want to put down North Texas Community Foundation and how much funding you're requesting from the foundation. So you're requesting they are requesting $6,500. They are also requesting $1,500 from the Chewy Foundation and $2,500 from the Pedigree Foundation. So you can see that with the secured funding and the funding requests that are currently out there that they don't have a response for, they have a total project income of $14,000. And you can also see that that is greater than what their project expenses are. This is pretty common for us to see that you're requesting or that your requests out there are greater than what your project expenses are. Because if you have been in grant funding or grant writing for long, you know that not every grant that you apply for, you're going to get. So it's often very common for us to see you requesting more from organizations than what you actually need for your project budget. If you have any questions on that, don't hesitate to reach out. Please make sure that you do use our template. Please keep it to one page only. Also, make sure that you don't have multiple tabs with information, because what that does is create 2 and 3 and 4 different pages. So make sure you keep it on that one singular tab. You also want to make sure that you keep it vertical, not horizontal. And again, reach out with any questions if you have any regarding the project budget. Hopping into the organization budget, again, there's going to be a template available. We want to make sure that we keep this organization budget to one page. And this is to help those reviewers, because they're reviewing so many applications that come in. The simpler and easier that we can keep it for our reviewers, the more easy and concise they can be when they're looking at who they're selecting to fund. If you have a one-page organization budget already, and it looks very similar to what we have in our template, you are welcome to submit that one page, but please keep it to one page. And again, we want to make sure that we keep it vertical and not horizontal. If you have any questions, again, feel free to reach out. And then as you are working on the application, just know that you have the ability to save and return or to submit your application at any time. A few grant writing tips that we have for you all is, as you're writing about your organization, write as if the reader knows nothing about your organization. Oftentimes, even though you're in this field and you know these organizations, our reviewers may be new to your organization. So you want to make sure that you let them know about your history and who you are and what you do, and not make any assumptions that the reader knows anything about your organization. Make sure you define what success looks like for your organization. Some organizations may have a $5 million budget and success might be very obvious for them, or you might be a $50,000 work budget organization, and success may look very different to you. So make sure you define what success is for you. Make sure you keep everything simple and don't forget to proofread. There are some really, really great apps out there. There's one called Grammarly that I've heard a lot of grant writers use, where they can kind of just drop in sentences or paragraphs and it'll clean things up for you. Feel free to collaborate with other people in your organization and have them review your work to see if it sounds clear and concise. Also, don't forget to add videos or letters of support. Maybe you have someone in your organization that has used your equine therapy services, a family member who has really been impacted by the work that you do. See if they would be willing to write a letter of support. Maybe you have a congressperson or a community member who's been a longtime supporter. Feel free to have them write a letter of support. Videos are always welcome. We do ask that you keep your videos to 2 minutes or less. They can be an informational video. You can use that on a phone, on a tablet. We have had people, I think it was 2 years ago, we had an organization that had a Girl Scout come in, and for her senior project, she did a 2-minute video presentation for the organization. And that's what they submitted for their project or for their video on their application. So don't forget to add those things. It's not a requirement to add a letter of support or video, but it's always helpful for our reviewers to see and learn a little bit more about you. Also, explain how your project aligns with the grant cycle priorities. Keep looking at that request for proposal and making sure that what you're doing aligns with what those priorities are that are listed on that request for proposal or that RFP. And then don't be afraid to share your impact, share your story, share your successes. It can be really hard to talk about yourself sometimes, but you really want to make sure that the grant committee members know why it's important to support you, and sharing your successes lets them know how important your work is in the community. Our timeline right now is that your grant proposals are due on September 22nd by 5 p.m. We put that as a 5 p.m. deadline so that staff are available to take any last minute phone calls or emails. But everything must be submitted through the grant portal. We will not take anything by email or dropped off at our office or mailed in. Everything must be submitted through the grant portal. We will be notifying you of the awards by November 3rd. They will come through as an email from our grant portal, whether you've been approved or denied. You may or may not receive a phone call from me. There are times that maybe you've been denied and the grant committee has feedback that they would like for me to share with you. I will reach out to share that feedback. Or maybe you were approved and there are guidelines or stipulations to the amount that you were approved for, or the grant committee has asked you to add or subtract something from your application. So I'll make that phone call to let you know about that as well. And then you would expect to see your check mailed out mid-November. So hopefully by late November, early December, you will have your check in the mail if you are awarded a grant. If you do have any questions about further eligibility, or maybe you're having questions about the grant portal, how you add someone in your organization to your already existing organization in our grant portal, reach out and let me know. Maybe you need to reset your password. You can reach out. I can reset that password for you. You are welcome to email, to call. I'm fairly available all of the time. So feel free to reach out.